A hush fell over the godswood of Winterfell long before dawn. Moonlight silvered the black pool, feathering every ripple with quicksilver and ghosting the face that hovered just beneath its surface. Bran Stark felt the chill of it in both body and spirit, though his crippled feet dangled numb above the moss-slick stones and could no longer remember cold. The heart tree towered behind him, its red leaves sighing like slow breath. Sapdark eyes wept streams that disappeared into the cracked face of the old gods. Yet Bran's own eyes saw farther still. Past the godswood, past the walls, past the long leagues of the north, and deep into a river of time that coursed beneath all things alive or dead. He sat upon a root as thick as a man's torso. The white weirwood had grown restless tonight, rooting him to its bark, drawing him down until trunk and boy seemed a single shape silhouetted against the wan moon. Even amid the hush, Bran heard the wolf song of summer on the wind-swept battlements and felt the rasp of Hodder's empty skin, as though the gentle giant still carried him on broad shoulders. But summer was leagues distant, and Hodder lay beyond all doors. Behind Bran, in the waking world, Mira Reed lay curled in a gray cloak near the crypt mouth, her slow breaths frosting the night air. Jojen's green dreams had ended months ago, the green sap running dry in a broken body, and with his death the fire in Mira's eyes had dimmed. Yet she remained because Bran remained, and because the world within the weirwoods still demanded a watcher. Beneath the roots ran the living memory of Westeros. When Bran pressed his palm to the ridged bark, he felt each ring of the tree as a drumbeat, echoes of centuries piling on one another until they became the roar of a waterfall. He let the sound devour him. The moonlight vanished. Cold bark melted into warped corridors of wood and bone. The scent of snow fled, replaced by the copper tang of blood and the sharp perfume of summer roses just beginning to wilt. He stood unnoticed, in a vaulted chamber thick with the musk of melted candles and tallow smoke. Silk tapestries of red and gold dripped from corbel to floor, their lion mouths gaping in muted roars. A high harp thrummed a single unresolved chord, and Bran felt his heart answer, straining toward the sound as a flower strains toward sun. Before the hearth, a man knelt, taller than father but slender as a reed, his silver-gold hair pouring over mail as fine as spider silk. He held a parchment in one hand and a small carved harp in the other. By the rise and fall of his shoulders he was breathing as though he had run a mile in plate. A brazier glowed at his side, its coals banked low, yet they illuminated the seal of the seven-pointed star upon the letter. Bran knew the sigil well enough from Sept lessons, though he had never before smelled parchment scorched by tears. Rhaegar Targaryen. The thought struck Bran with the force of a hammer. Prince Rhaegar, heir of Aerys, father to a babe brutally dashed against a wall by Gregor Clegane. Dead these many years, and yet here he knelt, alive, hands trembling over a letter whose wax was still soft. Bran felt the air twitch, as though the room itself expected words. Something inside him stirred, a memory of an older voice, wooden and hollow, whispering across centuries. The ink is not yet dry. Some things must be said. Bran had spoken into the past once before and doomed young Hodder. The warning of the three-eyed raven yet rang in his ears. The past is already written. The ink is dry. But this letter, this moment, felt different. Wet ink glistened in the candlelight, shining and alive. And with that shine came a possibility so sharp it could wound the world. Bran had not come seeking this man, yet perhaps the weirwood, perhaps something older, had guided him here. Rhaegar's breath caught, and his fingers crushed the parchment as though strangling a snake. Bran's throat tightened. The words he had learned to weave across water and would quivered on his tongue. If he spoke, the prince might hear as Hodder had heard. Would it matter? Could it? He felt the slow turn of timber as the weirwood listened. Outside the chamber, a distant bell told the hour of the owl, and Bran thought of ravens flapping across black skies, each wing beat scattering ash upon dragonfire. The parchment twitched in Rhaegar's grip. Bran saw that the wax bore the stag of Storm's End and the dire wolf of Winterfell quartered on a single shield. He knew then what tidings the letter carried. Robert Baratheon's call to arms, Ned Stark's silent oath to stand beside sworn brother and foster kin. Wounds reopened across the prince's handsome face. Wounds yet to come but already etched in memory. A rubied breastplate battered by Robert's hammer. A rushing river turning red. A crown of lapis stones trampled under war horses. Rhaegar crushed the letter to his chest and pressed his brow to folded parchment. Lyanna, he breathed, and the name was a prayer and a curse entwined. Bran's heart lurched. Lyanna, his aunt, who would die weeping in a tower of dawn light and desert flowers. Jon's mother. The snow of Winterfell tasted of blood. Listen, the word left Bran before he could think. It burst against the chamber walls in a voice like cracking ice. The harp cried out as if in answer, a discordant shriek that sent strings snapping one by one. Rhaegar jerked upright, sapphire eyes blazing into the dark. Who? The prince's sword left its scabbard with a whisper. Show yourself. Bran felt splinters drive through ghost flesh. The wood of the past resisted mortal breath. He remembered the raven's talon digging into his shoulder. Speak seldom, lest you drown in echoes. But the letter, the harp, the roses wilting unseen. These were threads suspended in a cobweb of time. If he plucked one, would the spider stir? Your father's madness will burn the kingdoms, Bran whispered, but your silence will drown them in blood. The words seemed pulled from him, his own will an afterthought. Rhaegar's eyes widened, not in fear but in recognition, as though this voice were one he had heard in dreams. Firelight licked the steel in his hand. Is this sorcery? He asked the empty air. Another of Varys's games? Yet doubt crept over his flawless features like cloud across moon. He turned, scanning tapestries, rafters, the shadows behind the hearth, seeking the puppet strings of some conspirator. Bran swallowed. The wolf's head and the stag's roar, he warned. They march. They will not stop. The Baratheon? The name gusted from Rhaegar's lips. Robert seeks her. His gaze shot to the letter, then to the harp, and lingered on a single broken string that curled like black hair. I thought to end it quietly, he murmured half to himself. A tourney crown for a maid of winter, a song for the ages. Yet the song has soured. In the Weirwood's hollow, Bran felt the weight of every possible melody. Ares's wildfire caches glittered beneath King's Landing. The Mad King's laugh echoed in stone. The screaming of children cried from a future not yet born, and from a past immovable. And somewhere, cold as the surface of the pool, Jon Snow stood alone upon the wall, his lineage chained by lies and ashes. Listen to the child of winter, Bran urged. Break the wheel before the wheel breaks you. The words came not from history but from the living heart tree, spoken through him as through a reed pipe. He felt the bark bleed. Rhaegar's sword lowered. A child, he whispered, as though tasting the snow on his tongue. A stark child. His eyes shimmered. Lyanna swore the old gods watched her beneath Winterfell's heart tree. Are you that god? Bran dared not claim divinity. Yet he knew the North's answer. The old gods are a million lives bound by roots and ice, and each may speak when needed. He could not lie, but he might guide. Remember the prophecy, Bran said. The prince that was promised. He felt the ink bleeding across years. A song of ice and fire. Rhaegar's breath stilled. His free hand drifted to the harp, as though to cradle it. I have studied every scroll, he said. In my blood runs dragon fire, but fire alone cannot temper the darkness beyond the wall. It must marry the frost. He stared into the embers. Lyanna's eyes, winter's eyes. Bran felt the world hinge on that unspoken yearning. He had watched Rhaegar in many a green dream. The prince haunting libraries, cloisters, and tourney grounds, searching prophecy the way starving men hunt bread. In each dream, the search ended in ash. But this moment, this living, breathing hesitation was new. You will die upon the trident, Bran whispered, unless you choose another path. Rhaegar's lips parted. The trident, the river where armies meet. A hammer falls, and the dragon's song ends. Bran's voice cracked. He heard Robert's war cry echo like thunderhead drums. Do not let the hammer strike. Outside the window, King's Landing slept beneath a sky of embers. Rhaegar sheathed his sword and paced the chamber like a caged cat. "If I ride to Dragonstone," he muttered, "my father will brand me craven. If I summon Lyanna openly, houses will howl." His fingers traced circles in the air. Prophecy, prophecy. The weirwood trembled. Bran sensed the hourglasses of sand tipping in holdfast and keep, each grain a heartbeat. Sunlight crept across foreign horizons, ignorant of rebellion and blood, yet roots delved deeper. "Go north," Bran said suddenly. The advice toppled from his lips like a stone hurled from a castle wall. "Seek the wall. Seek the wall before the wall seeks you." Rhaegar halted. "The wall? The Night's Watch." He laughed, but the sound was brittle. "My father barely acknowledges it exists." "All walls fall," Bran answered, "but the choice is in how they do." A long silence followed, thick with the scent of smoke. The brazier popped, sparks spiraled. Rhaegar approached the window and parted heavy drapes. Beyond, the Blackwater reflected the fat crescent moon. "Whoever you are," he murmured, "your words are heavy with grief. I feel it unease within my bones." He drew a breath that quivered like a harp string. "Very well, I will ride to the wall, and if I see but a whisper of truth, I shall act." Bran's heart pounded, both in the past and in the godswood. The wind sighed through red leaves, scattering a handful like bloodied snow. He reached for the prince with invisible hands. "Then ride swiftly, dragon, for winter comes with every breath." Rhaegar bowed his head, silver hair spilling forward like penned lightning. He crushed Robert's letter beneath the brazier tongs and fed it to the fire. Blue wax sputtered, melting into an obscure sigil before flame devoured it. He watched until nothing remained but curling smoke and a brittle black scrap of parchment that refused to burn. The dream blurred. Bran felt the roots withdraw, tugging him back into the hushed heart tree. The chamber dissolved in sparks. The harp's broken cord trailed away like a dying comet. The pool beneath Winterfell's branches reflected the moon again. Yet the moon was wrong, too low, too blood-stained. Bran jerked awake, sweat freezing on his neck, and saw Mira Reed staring at him across the pool, her spear in hand. "Another vision?" she asked, voice barely above a breath. Bran swallowed. "A change," he said. His hands trembled. The owl's bell tolled again somewhere in Winterfell, but slower than before, as though the gears of the world turned with greater caution. By first light, ravens burst from the rookery of the Red Keep like arrows fired skyward. Each carried parchment sealed with a three-headed dragon. Maester Pycelle would whisper later of an unscheduled royal journey, though no writ bore the king's signature. On the Tower of the Hand, the spiders crept. In the city's low alleys, whispers spread. Prince Rhaegar musters a hidden host in the north. Some said it was a relief mission to Winterfell, where snows had grown heavier. Others claimed the prince hunted a band of poachers on crown lands. Only Varys, clinging to the walls like a shadow, guessed at deeper ploys, and even he found his web trembling. For nights later, under a black-winged moon, Rhaegar Targaryen rode from King's Landing with an escort of dawn-cloaked knights. No banners flew save a single strip of cloth bearing the silver harp on milky white, a subtle proclamation for those with eyes to see. The crown prince did not pause to bid farewell to Elia Martell, whose lips tasted of blood from a coughing fit, nor to the babe Aegon, whose head smelled sweet as peach skin in high summer. Yet before mounting, Rhaegar pressed the infant to his breast and closed his eyes as though braiding a string of prayers no mortal tongue could utter. When he set the boy down, tears glinted on the steel of his breastplate, but none dared speak. He rode hard then, his black stallion scattering cinders beneath iron shoes, and the escort thundered after him toward the King's Road. Within the Red Keep, King Aerys raged at red-robed pyromancers, shrieking of treachery while sparks leapt into his beard. Yet even madness knew fear. When told his son rode north, the king ordered wildfire stalks doubled beneath Flea Bottom and the Dragon Pit. "Let them come," he hissed, scratching new scabs. "Let all traitors burn. North of the neck, The ancient King's Road snaked through watchful pines. Rhaegar's party made scarce campfires, as though hunted by unseen talons. Every evening the prince read by starlight from a small weathered tome, Jade Compendium of Ass-High. Every dawn he played upon a newly strung harp, its notes drifting through frost-damp air to light upon his men's hearts like gentle snowflakes. Yet behind each chord lay the echo of a ghostly boy's voice, warning of hammers and idols and ice. So when ravens winged overhead, the prince watched them as though for augury. On the 12th day, they reached Moat Cailin and found the Crannogmen's foggy marshlands silent. Rhaegar sent Ser Miles Mouton into the mists to parley, but the night returned alone, pale as quicklime. "Shadows move in the reeds," he reported. "Eyes too low for men, too bright for wolves." That night, the escort lit no fires and sleep came slowly. Bran Stark saw it all, perched in the branches of a gnarled sentinel tree, his spirit borne on the wings of an owl that circled the camp. He watched the prince pore over maps of the gift. He watched Ser Arthur Dayne polish dawn until stars danced in its milky blade. And he saw the fear that flickered, quick and brittle, in Rhaegar's violet eyes when thunder rolled from the distant north, though the skies were clear. Mira Reed, guarding the real Bran's slumbering body, did not know why his breath hitched. Nor did Samwell Tarly, newly arrived from Old Town with scrolls on Dawn Age legends committed to memory. Only the Weirwoods knew. When they crossed Torrens Square, the small folk blinked to see a dragon helmeted in silver but carrying no banners of war. Rhaegar called for quiet counsel with Lord Helman Tallheart, whose patchy beard bespoke long nights of dread. Robert Baratheon had already begun to rally Stormlanders, Helman warned. Word reached even the farthest crofts that noble Jon Arryn refused to surrender his wards to royal justice. But the strangest tidings came from White Harbor. Ser Barristan Selmy, traveling incognito, had ridden south weeks ago with a letter from Brandon Stark that never reached its mark. Lord Ricard petitioned the king, and the king demanded hostages, and rumor planted seeds of wildfire in every hearth. "Winter is coming," Lord Helman intoned, hand on his sword belt, "and war with it." Rhaegar thanked him gravely, yet when he left the solar his eyes shone with a fire wholly his own. Bran followed his gaze to the night sky, where a single red star bled across velvet. "I know the shape of destiny," the prince whispered to the night, "but I will carve new runes upon it." Winterfell loomed at last, gray towers rising like frozen fingers clawing at the pale sky. The air smelled of wood smoke and baked bread and the faint rot of melting snowbanks. Bran saw old Nan hobbling past the archery butts, saw Maester Luwin's paws mid-scratch, saw little Benjen Stark spin a wooden sword at the yard's edge, his laughter bright as hammered tin. And then Bran saw himself, boy of 8 summers, wild hair matted by leaves, legs yet whole, racing a direwolf pup along the crenellations. The sight nearly broke his heart, but he could not linger. He drifted like vapor toward the gatehouse, where Ned Stark waited in tan leather jerkin, his face still unshadowed by grief or guilt. Ned's first glimpse of Rhaegar stiffened every man atop the parapets. The crown prince dismounted, mindful of Stark law. No swords used inside their lord's grim keep save in defense of house and kin. Rhaegar removed his gauntlets before offering a cordial nod. The hostler led away the stallion. Hooves echoed like muffled drums. "My Lord Stark," Rhaegar said, lowering his head just enough to honor a liege without prostrating prince to vassal. "I seek guest right under your roof." Guest right given, but tension thrummed beneath. Ned gestured for the prince to follow, and in the great hall the lords of the north gathered like storm clouds. Clay Serwyn, robed in brown, whispered of Butcher Kings. Lady Barbary Dustin's eyes glittered above a goblet of Dornish red. Yet Rhaegar spoke not of Lyanna. He requested maps of the wall of its castles, the manned and the abandoned. He asked after wildling raiders, ice spiders from children's tales, and the stuff of Maester's ledgers. Grain stores, timber strengths, iron fetters along the gate of Castle Black. Lords exchanged puzzled glances, but Rhaegar's silver smile held them fast. Only when the servants had cleared trencher and cup did Ned lean close. "My prince," he murmured, soft as falling snow, My sister vanished on her way south. Many whisper she fled with a dragon. The hearth spat sparks. Rhaegar's flask of arbor gold trembled in his hand. He set it down untouched. "If she lives," he said, "she is safe." His words bore no arrogance, only solemn hope. "And if war threatens, I would shield her, and all the realm, from worse than war." Ned's jaw hardened. What could be worse? Rhaegar glanced toward the stone ceiling, as though through gray to starless night. "Ask the wall," he said. "Ask the dead." Silence fell. Somewhere a dire wolf howled. In the crypts beneath Winterfell, Rhaegar descended alone, torchlight bobbing through the damp. Bran perched inside the carved eye sockets of Brandon the Builder's stone likeness and watched. The torch sputtered at Lyanna's empty alcove, awaiting her bones. Ash clung to the torches here like moths. Rhaegar knelt and laid his harp at the wolf-maid's feet. The strings hummed of their own accord, summoning music only the dead might hear. Bran dared approach in mind alone. He saw the prince's eyes glisten under flickering light. "Lyanna," Rhaegar whispered, brushing dust from stone where her statue would one day stand. "Forgive me. I sought a crown of winter roses, not a wreath of grave flowers." The words pierced Bran's heart as surely as they pierced Ned's, listening from shadow. Yet both Stark brothers, one living, one ghost in skin not his own, felt the vow beneath, a promise twisted by love and prophecy, yet guided now by warning. "At dawn," Rhaegar vowed, "I ride for the wall." The torches flared, then guttered. Ned stepped from darkness, and the two men faced one another across centuries of mistrust. Neither spoke, as though the dead beneath the stones demanded silence. When at last Ned drew breath, his voice emerged hushed. "If winter roses bloom at the wall," he said, "bring my sister home." Rhaegar bowed his head, not prince to bannerman, but wronged bard to living conscience. In that bow lay a truce, fragile as the frost upon Lyanna's vanished brow. Deep in the god's wood, Bran surfaced from the roots, gasping in his crippled body. The heart tree's red leaves fluttered in windless air. Mira pressed a skin of warm ale to his lips. "Did he hear you?" Bran nodded, tears tracking paths down icy cheeks. "He rides tomorrow. Then the past is changed?" He tasted ash. "The past is wounded," he said, "but it still bleeds." He did not know whether the wound would heal true or fester deeper. Yet somewhere, on a king's road dusted with frost, a dragon rode north toward the wall, and every hoofbeat shook the latticework of time. The ravens screamed. At Castle Black, Maester Aemon Targaryen of the Night's Watch dropped his wax-sealed ledger when the birds came battering into the rookery window. Feathers spiraled, scrolls scattered. Each raven bore a ribbon of silver thread around its leg. Trembling, the old maester coaxed one onto his finger, cracked its seal, and read. By the time Jonos Slint, Lord Commander these meager months, limped across the yard to the rookery, Aemon's blind eyes brimmed with tears. "A rider approaches," the maester whispered, parchment rattling between bones. "With dragon's blood and winter's question." Slint scoffed, but the birds shrieked again, echoing off ice as ancient as time. Far below, the gate rattled with new life. From the high window of her tower at Riverrun, Catelyn Tully watched the sunrise stain the tumblestone gold. Rumors galloped through the garrison. The royal prince had gone missing, banners moved upon the river road. The mad king scourged his own court for treason. Yet above all rumors soared a darker omen. Wolves howled at midday, and crows fled the fields. Her father's maester said it was an early winter. Cat prayed he was right. Inside the Tower of Joy, years hence and worlds away, Lyanna Stark would not die alone. But Bran had not yet seen what price the world would demand for such mercy. Across the sea, in the scented courts of Dorne, Elia Martell listened to whispers of kings and crumbs alike. Her delicate hands folded upon a swelling belly, second child quickening. When Sunspear courtiers babbled of dragon princes riding north, Elia closed her eyes and remembered the soft hush of harp strings in a garden of lemon trees. "Ride swift, my love," she murmured, and ride home again. And in the night fort, a creature older than kingdoms stirred, half remembering the last time a Targaryen's footsteps echoed through ice-haunted halls. The wall listened, and its silent stones shivered. Snow fell in lazy spirals over the king's road north of Queenscrown. Rhaegar's escort glittered with frost, ruby clasps rhymed in white. Ser Arthur Dayne rode at the vanguard, dawn sheathed but restless. Ser Oswell, whence bat-winged helm trailed icy vapor from nostril vents, his laughter clinking like bells. Yet no laughter warmed Rhaegar's breath. His mind roamed beyond the next bend into mists thick as milk. Benjen Stark rode out with half a dozen outriders to guide them. The boy's cheeks flushed with pride. He told tales of a heart with golden rack leaping the shivering sea, of a knight who jousted the wind. Rhaegar smiled and listened, stroking the harp slung across his back like a second sword. The strings quivered as though humming Benjen's words into new stanzas. But the boy's stories soon veered to his sister, the wolf maid with the wild heart, and the prince's smile faltered. After nightfall, campfires guttered low to preserve wood. The world shrank to a circle of ember glow. Benjen sat near Rhaegar, gnawing jerky, eyes wide. "Is it true you crowned my sister queen of love and beauty?" Rhaegar's breath misted. "I crowned the heart of winter," he answered. "Beauty is but frost-catching sun." Benjen frowned. "You stole her." "No," Rhaegar said softly. "I followed her voice across darkness." Then he shook his head. "Words are wind. Perhaps I stole sunshine from the sky." He glanced at the stars. "Yet men wage war for less, and women weep for more." Benjen had no reply. Snow crackled underfoot. The wind carried distant howls. They slept beneath cloaks stiff with rime, and in moonlit dreams Bran wandered among them unseen, listening to differences, to choices, to the shifting hum of time as a harp retuned. At dawn, a horn echoed along the wall. Castle Black's gate groaned open. Jono Slint, armor gleaming with the polish of newfound authority, marched to meet the prince flanked by black-cloaked brothers. Rhaegar dismounted, unbuckling sword and harp alike, offering them as hostages. Slint eyed Dawn's pale glory covetously, but Ser Arthur's gaze made him swallow his greed. Brothers parted to allow Rhaegar passage, yet whispers rose like raven wings. Targaryen. Dragon.
Très raison.
Wildfire's heir. Inside the armory, Maester Aemon waited, head bowed beneath the cowl of black. When Rhaegar entered, Aemon's sightless eyes tracked the clink of spurs, the ragged draw of breath. "Dragon's Square should not cross dragons," the old man murmured. "Yet here we meet, nephew once removed." Rhaegar fell to one knee before the frail figure. "Maester," he greeted, voice hoarse. "They said you foresaw." Aemon's thin fingers brushed Rhaegar's cheek. "I know the shape of prophecy," he whispered, "but not its mind." His fingers traced the prince's brow, as though reading runes. "Tell me why you come." "I seek the truth of winter," Rhaegar answered, standing, "and how to end a fire before it begins." The maester's mouth twisted in a sad smile. "Fire cannot end fire," he said, "but ice may quench the brightest flame." He turned his head slightly, as though seeing through stone. "The wall remembers defeat. The others wait behind the veil. Light unsheathed too early blinds the warrior." Rhaegar listened to every syllable as though to pluck music from them. "Will winter rise now, or years hence?" Aemon's shoulders trembled. "The winds chill sooner than men believe," he whispered. "But prophecy is a treacherous guide. Seek hearts, not scrolls." Rhaegar straightened, resolve crystallizing in violet eyes. "Then I will forge hearts," he vowed. "Stag, wolf, dragon, 3 heads of the song. We shall sing in harmony or not at all." Bran, watching unseen, felt the harp strings echo in his chest. 3 heads, a song of ice and fire. Yet a song cannot exist until sung, and singers die. He saw, for a flicker of an instant, an older self of Rhaegar in shimmering armor of white and blue, sword ablaze with pale fire, standing beside Ned Stark atop the wall. founding a pact against cold night while Robert Baratheon gnashed teeth far to the south. Another flicker, Rhaegar's corpse beneath Robert's hammer, a harp crushed beneath steel. Another, a red comet streaking overhead as dragons hatched on Dragonstone. Years beyond any change made tonight, futures wove and tangled like roots. Aemon's voice broke through. "Beware the pyre hidden within the dragon's eye," he said. "Your father stokes wildfire." "I know," Rhaegar answered, and Bran felt him flinch. "Then ride swift," Aemon urged, sudden strength ringing. "Or crows will feast on dragon and stag alike." When the prince left the maester, he climbed to the wall's icy rampart alone. Dawn bled into pink across endless snows. Rhaegar gazed northward where pale mountains knelt beneath aurora shimmer. He breathed deep of cold air. Then he drew his glove and pressed bare palm to the wall. The ice burned, but he did not flinch. He closed his eyes and listened for heartbeats within the frozen giant. A low sound answered, guttural and deep as breaking glaciers. Rhaegar opened his eyes. Frost clung to his eyelashes, glittering like diamonds. "So it is true," he whispered, voice a plume of white, and prophecy only half told. Behind him, Ser Arthur Dayne waited, cloak snapping. He advanced until their shoulders nearly touched. "My prince." Rhaegar did not turn. "Gather the men," he said. "Send ravens to Dragonstone. Tell my father." Words failed him. The wind howled. "Tell him I ride to win the dawn." "Your grace." Arthur bowed. He hesitated, rare for the seasoned sword of the morning. "And Lyanna?" Rhaegar's hand tightened on the frozen crenel. "When I return," he said, "I will return with a crown of truth, not of flowers." Arthur inclined his head, unsatisfied but obedient. Below, in the yard, Benjen Stark practiced sword swings, each cut scattering ice dust. Snowflakes clung to his hair like white petals. Bran hovered in an owl above him and heard the boy mutter a promise to join the watch one day, to guard the realms of men. He did not know how near that day would come. South in Storm's End, Robert Baratheon crushed a tankard in one fist when he learned the Dragon Prince fled north. His voice shook the granite halls as he swore thunder upon every white-scaled child. Though his war council murmured of caution, no rebellion could claim righteous cause while the prince sought peaceful answers at the wall. Stannis glared at the maps, jaw clenched, while Renly giggled and chased kittens. Jon Arryn's letters arrived urging temperance, yet each parchment smelled faintly of panic. Robert wanted Lyanna. He wanted war, but prophecy had shifted beneath his feet, and with each step the stag risked charging into a snare set by fate and ice. In King's Landing, wildfire pots multiplied in secret catacombs. Aerys paced throne room tiles, nails clawing flesh until fingertips bled. "He abandons me," the king crooned. "My own blood." He licked crimson from knuckles. "No matter. Dragonfire faces all flames." Pyromancers bowed low, promising green fountains brighter than noon sun. Jaime Lannister, golden and silent, stood guard, hearing every mad whisper, knowing each word another flake of skin on a festering wound. When the king summoned Qyburn to speak of secrets of life and death, Jaime's sword hand flexed reflexively, but prophecy bound him as surely as vows. In Old Town, Archmaester Marwyn pried open an obsidian box and breathed a curse older than old Valyria. Smoking fragments inside pulsed with sorrowful light. "Time bends," he told his acolytes, "and when it snaps, minds shatter." He drafted Raven's warning of cracks between worlds. He burned them unread when the glass candles blacked out. Yet the wall stood, ancient and silent, while a dragon prince walked its length tasting choice in the air. Bran hid within the winter winds, watching Rhaegar touch the ice as though tuning the world to his harp. And somewhere beneath the frost, something ancient stirred, curious, sensing new lines drawn across the canvas of night. Ned Stark lingered at Winterfell's gate long after the prince rode north again. Rhaegar departed with a smaller company, 2 Kingsguard and a handful of sworn swords, leaving the rest at Winterfell's hospitality. Ned's face was carved of stone, but inside Bran felt his uncle's heart drums, Fear, awe, confusion. A hunger to trust matched only by dread of betrayal. He would ride south soon, carry news to Jon Arryn, weigh oaths against blood. Bran wanted to speak to him, to whisper father, though Ned was yet young by years. But he dared not shift threads further. They already twisted until reality thrummed. Instead, Bran perched above the gatehouse beside a raven croaking in winter rasp, and watched his uncle watch the prince disappear into white horizon. "Bring her home," Ned whispered to the wind, carried the words onward across fields, across forests, across time. And in the still hush of the godswood, Bran Stark opened his real eyes, tears freezing upon lashes. Mira squeezed his hand. "Did you change it?" Bran stared at moon-stained branches wagging like slow serpents. "I shifted it," he said. "But change is an avalanche. You cannot guide every stone." She looked toward the castle where lanterns flickered. "Will it be enough?" Bran thought of Rhaegar's palm burning on ice, of wildfire brewing under marble streets, of Robert's hammer thirsty for dragons. He thought of Jon Snow, born of both winter and flame, standing someday before a king who was his father and was not. And he thought of the darkness beyond the wall, older than songs. "Enough for what?" he asked. Beyond the hazed horizon, a horn blast echoed 3 times. Once, twice, thrice, though none alive blew it, and the frosted forests shuddered like beasts waking. Night bled slowly into dawn, and the story of Westeros began to rewrite itself, line by fragile line, verse by tentative verse, beneath the watchful eyes of castles, kings, and unseen gods carved in red wood. Yet ink is stubborn. Even when wet, it stains all it touches. And Bran Stark, who once fell from a tower to learn to fly, now perched on the thin crack between was and might be. His own heart a quill shivering above a page that refused to dry. Clouds rolled like bruised wool above the wall, trailing veils of snow as fine as sifted flour across the black stone barracks. Rhaegar stood on the parapet long after dawn's red faded into a pewter sky, gloved fingers drumming the frost-slick Merlin in slow, thoughtful rhythm. Below, Castle Black murmured with unfamiliar life. Night's Watch brothers lugged extra sacks of barley from the icy cellars. Old Bowen Marsh chivied stewards to double the oil in every lantern. Ravens flapped in restless knots, as though uncertain which cry to loose. The prince's presence disturbed the old order, and men felt it in their marrow. Ser Arthur Dayne joined him at last, breath ghosting the air. Fresh tracks beyond the northeastern switchback. A small party returned before sunrise. For men missing, Rhaegar's eyes remained fixed on the white waste stretching northward. Rangers! Aye, Ser Waymar Royce among them. The survivors speak of shadows that walked without sound. "Send them to Maester Aemon," the prince said. "If they saw truth, I would hear every word." Arthur measured him. "And if the truth is madness, then we have company at court." Rhaegar's smile was thin as hoarfrost. "Madness I can wield, lies I can break. Shadows," he exhaled. "Shadows require light." Arthur did not challenge him further. Below, the main yard clanged with steel as Benjen Stark sparred 2 members of the escort, the boys' laughter ringing even when their blunted longswords knocked his to the packed snow. Rhaegar watched the tumble. "The wolf cub improves daily. Give him 3 years and he'll join the Watch in truth," Arthur said. "Give him 3 weeks," Rhaegar murmured, "and he'll ride south with news no southern lord will believe." He turned from the battlements. "Ready the horses. We ride at moonrise." Arthur frowned. Beyond the wall, light is failing, and the road is treacherous after Goat's Knee. "It is the darkness I must test," Rhaegar answered, "not the road." In the courtyard, Jono's Slint paced like a bantam cock, armor polished so hard the torchlight stabbed the eye. He met the prince as Rhaegar descended the stair. "Your Grace," Slint began, savoring the title. "The brothers thank you for your generosity. Those grain wagons will see us through the lean." "Keep the wagons for the widows." Rhaegar cut him off, voice soft but immovable. "I will take 8 men, no more. A quick ride to Eastwatch by the sea, then along the Milkwater. The watch's business is my own. You may hold your post. Slint flushed, uncertain whether the words were gift or insult. Behind him, Maester Aemon shuffled forward, parchment in hand. Your eyes will fail beyond the first ridge, the old man warned. Night falls fast in the haunted forest. Carry dragonglass if you must venture there. Rhaegar accepted a small linen package, weighty with black obsidian arrowheads and knife shards, bound by a leather thong. The first men fought with these, he said, and the last men may do so again, Aemon said, sightless gaze sweeping over both prince and sword of the morning. Do not heed prophecy more than steel. Ice remembers only truth. Rhaegar pressed 2 fingers to the maester's papery hand in vow. I will return, he promised, and bring dawn with me. Twilight bled purple when the eastern gate rasped open. Snow whirled through the gap, stinging exposed cheeks. Rhaegar led, clad in dark leather and gray-white scale, harp left behind in favor of a plain warhorn slung beside canteen. Arthur and Oswell rode flank. Benjen Stark, despite Ned's written protests, had begged a place among them, and the prince granted it. He rode a shaggy Garen so ugly the beast seemed carved from gnarled roots, yet its sure-footed gait pleased Rhaegar well enough. They passed the weathered mile marker called the Giant's Elbow by torchlight, hooves muffled under drifts. Wind keened among ice-weighted pines. Little was said. The forest devoured idle chatter, and each man heard his own heartbeat thunder louder than words. Hours later they made camp beneath a squat crag where ancient fires once blackened stone. Benjen coaxed a flame from pine pitch while Ser Oswell hammered iron spikes for a lean-to. Snow thickened into curtains. As the men chewed salt pork, Rhaegar rose and stepped beyond the fire's bloom. He knelt, gloved hands pressed to the snow, and closed his eyes. The hush swallowed crackling logs, swallowed breath. Bran Stark, perched invisible in a hoary spruce, watched the prince's hooded silhouette haloed by falling flakes. Rhaegar barely moved, only his lips parted, shaping words too faint for mortal ears. Yet Bran heard them, an old Valyrian prayer to light a fire that never dies. Something answered in the distant dark. Not words, but pressure, like a slow tide pushing back. Bran felt the weirwood net quiver. Roots thrummed under ice, roused by foreign pulse. The air cooled, snowflakes hissed against leather. Rhaegar's eyelids snapped open.
No dragons danced, no flames serid.
But the silence took on a peculiar tension, as though the world inhaled and forgot to exhale. Arthur's voice sliced it. Rhaegar. Snow crunched as the night approached. Riders. Benjen sprang to his feet, drawing steel. Between trunks, shapes flickered, 5, 6, maybe more. Wolves or men impossible to tell until torchlight licked them. Black cloaks, white stripes of frost, eyes wide with fear. Rangers. One collapsed near the fire's edge, face glazed with rime, arrow shaft buried in shoulder. Arthur sheathed Dawn and knelt. Who attacks? The ranger shook, teeth chattering. Dead men, he rasped. Dead, but walking. Benjen knelt too, helping cut away furs to bear the wound. The arrowhead, obsidian, glimmered in torchlight. Rhaegar's gaze met Bran's unseen vantage. The prince seemed to look through the forest itself. When? Arthur asked. 2 nights passed, another ranger said. We tailed wildlings fleeing east. Something chased them, white shadows. Ser Waymar told us to hold the pass. He drew steel and charged. We heard the blade scream and then... The man swallowed. Nothing.
No creí.
Just wind. And the obsidian? Rhaegar asked. We found a cache beneath a barrow of black stones. Wildlings carried a few. Said the children of the forest left them. When the shadows came, we loosed 1 arrow, only 1, and the thing shattered like brittle glass. He wiped frost-rimmed lips. But there were more. Rhaegar's glove creaked as he clenched his fist around Aemon's dragonglass pouch. Arthur knew that look. A man tasting omen. We ride at dawn, the prince decided. Guide us. Ride where? Benjen pressed. Where the dead walk. Eastwatch by the sea huddled against gray surf like a flock of ravens. Waiting to drown. The storm hammered the palisade with sleet, but Rhaegar's party reached its gates unchallenged. Word of their approach carried by Raven ahead. Lord Cotter Pike met them in the yard, rough-shaven and suspicious. "I've got 24 men with chilblains," he barked. "One shipwreck and half my guard away chasing wildling rafts. And now a dragon prince wants a pleasure cruise beyond the breakers." "I seek passage up the milk water," Rhaegar replied, calm, unperturbed. "A longboat, 7 oarsmen, 1 night," Pike spat. "Rivers choked by ice." "Then we break it," Arthur said. Dawn glimmered unsheathed an inch. Even Pike stepped back. "We require only the boat." 7 hells, Pike rubbed stubbled jaw. "If you come back frozen to the gunwales, it's your skin. We've logs enough to burn a corpse." Rhaegar dipped his head. Before dusk, they slid a narrow longboat into black water swirling with slush. Bran glided overhead on a mottled gull's back, wings beating hard against pelting sleet. Rhaegar took the prow, dragonglass dagger at belt, eyes scanning the white shore. Benjen clutched hilt and rail with equal ferocity. His breath fogged quick. Downriver they rode, through narrows lit by wan moon shards. Ice groaned, splitting under hull. Strange calls drifted across the water. The shriek of distant birds, or wolves, or something else. On the 4th bend, the ranger guide pointed to a ridge of firs. There, men leapt ashore, boots punching through drift. In the clearing stood a half-collapsed cairn of piled black stones, snow dusting each block like bone meal. Dragonglass shards littered the ground, some shaped like spear tips, others crude daggers. They reflected moonlight in oily hues. Rhaegar gathered a handful, weighing them. "Left by children, or something older," Arthur murmured. The guide's finger trembled. The white shadows came from the north slope. They followed, single file, blades bare. No breeze stirred. Snow crunched so loudly Bran feared it would waken the dead things. They crested the ridge, then halted. Below, the pines opened into a shallow bowl where frozen water pooled like dull glass. At its center lay a man in Royce armor, breastplate cracked. He knelt frozen mid-gesture, arm reaching toward a broken sword. Snow coated him like marble dust. Benjen stepped forward. Rhaegar seized his collar. "Look," the prince pointed. 8 paces beyond the corpse stood a figure of black ice. Humanoid, tall, gaunt, flesh translucent and veined with pale light. Fingers blade-sharp, eyes blue as striking steel. It faced the prince, motionless. Wind did not stir its hair. No breath misted. Yet it lived or existed, at least watching them. Ser Arthur raised Dawn. The pale sword shimmered in gloom, scattering soft rays. The thing flinched. "Dragonglass," Rhaegar whispered. Benjen readied an arrow tipped in obsidian. Hands shook. Before he loosed, the thing raised a hand, palm out, as though warning or greeting. Soundless, a hush deeper than night fell upon the bowl. Rhaegar stepped down the slope. Arthur hissed but followed. Bran screamed inside his head, "Danger!" But the prince advanced, eyes bright with terrible wonder. 10 paces, 8. At 5, frost filmed over Rhaegar's pauldron. He halted, unsheathed the black dagger. The thing's eyes flicked to it, recognition, and the creature lowered its arms slowly, fingers splaying across ribs. Then it touched its own chest and drew back, leaving a fissure of gleaming ice. Rhaegar understood. He reversed the dagger and offered the hilt across the distance. The creature tilted its head. Slowly, Arthur, sheathing Dawn, closed the gap, took the dagger and planted it, blade first, into snow between them, handle upright. He retreated 1 step. The creature looked at the weapon, looked at Rhaegar, then behind him to the men on the ridge. It reached out, gripped the hilt. Frost bloomed, ice cracking across the obsidian. For one impossible breath, Bran thought the dagger would shatter. But the creature lifted it, turning blade to examine the glassy edge now glowing faintly blue in its grasp. It pressed tip to the fissure in its breast and drove inward. Ice burst outward in a shimmering halo. The creature staggered, blue eyes blazing brighter, then dimmed to smoky quartz. The body fragmented into a flurry of pale shards that swirled upward, borne on no wind, dissolving into faint motes of light before vanishing. Silence ruled. Rhaegar exhaled, plume shaped like a dragon's wing. It killed itself. It showed us, Benjen whispered, voice raw. It wanted us to see. Arthur retrieved the dagger. Edge intact, surface rippled with frost veins that melted at his touch. Why? Rhaegar answered without turning from the empty ice where the being had stood. Because it knows winter marches, and would teach us the cost of ignorance. South in Riverrun, a different lesson unfolded. The yard rang as Ned Stark dismounted, cloak white with road dust. Catelyn rushed from the solar to greet him, cheeks pinked by surprise. Word from Winterfell had preceded him. The prince rode north, but Ned must ride south. He intended to persuade Jon Arryn that Robert must stay his hammer. War while the heir consorted with Night's Watch would dishonor realm and house alike. Yet Riverrun fidgeted with rumor. Lord Hoster's cough worsened. Maester Vyman's drafts failed to cool his fever. Catelyn drew Ned aside. Ser Brynden brings tidings from King's Landing. The king demands hostages. If Rhaegar does not kneel, the Mad King swears to burn Rickard Stark and Lord Arryn alive. Ned's face whitened. He read the Raven's parchment, ink still tacky. My father will never yield my sister. Jon Arryn will never yield me or Robert. Then the king will strike, Cat said. I prayed Bran's letters would calm Rhaegar's heart, Ned murmured, eyes distant. It seems they only stoked Aerys's rage. He ordered fresh horses and a small guard. That night he stood upon Riverrun's curtain wall beneath cold stars and watched the tumblestone royal black beneath moon. He clenched the stone crenel until knuckles bled. I ride at first light. Catelyn's hand found his. Bring peace, she whispered. Bring Lyanna home. Ned nodded, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty deeper than the river's dark. In King's Landing, Varys slid between red pillars like a silk-clad shadow. He found Jaime Lannister outside the small council chamber, helmet under arm, green eyes weary. The king's pyromancers now toil day and night, the spider breathed. Wildfire stalks swell beneath every gate. He means to ignite the city, Jaime said, voice flat. He means to ignite the world, Varys corrected. But the city will suffice for a first spark. Jaime looked toward the iron doors. If the prince dies beyond the wall, there will be no break. And if the prince lives? Varys asked, arching one painted brow. Jaime's jaw set. Then fathers will murder sons to silence him. Varys offered a faint smile. Perhaps sons will murder fathers first. Steel glinted in the lion's green gaze, then dulled with resignation. Jaime turned, pushing into the council chamber where Grand Maester Pycelle bleated statistics of grain and flame. Aerys perched atop the iron throne, hair wild, fingers scabbed, lips cracked. The king's eyes gleamed with fever and anticipation both. He clutched parchments stained by tears of wax, letters from spies reporting Rhaegar's desecration of sacred prophecy. He cavorts with ice and traitors, the king hissed. Bring me dragonfire enough to turn the north to glass. Pycelle quavered. Sire, the cost. Cost? Cost. The king laughed, spittle flying. I will forge a new world from ashes. Fire is a purer coin than gold. Jaime's hand touched his pommel. The gallery's shadows thickened. Varys vanished among them. Far across the sunset sea, on the broken ruins of Valyria, 3 blackened dragon eggs nestled in volcanic sand. They pulsed faintly, as though sensing the prickling tremor in the tapestry of fate. Deep in their shells, embers shivered. Rhaegar's party returned to Castle Black 3 nights later. The wall's horns cried 2 blasts, then 3 wildlings, then others, before stewards, confused, defaulted to 1. Jono's Slint stormed the gatehouse demanding explanation. The prince brushed past, eyes rimmed red from wind and sleeplessness. In the armory, he laid the dragonglass dagger before Maester Aemon. Frost veins still marbled the blade like azure lightning. It gave itself, Rhaegar said, to warn us. Aemon's blind fingers traced the rippled surface. The enemy once knew fear, he whispered. Perhaps fear returns. Fear we share, Rhaegar answered, but fear can bind allies. He convened the garrison's senior officers in the rookery at dawn. Bran watched through the lens of a raven perched above the shutter. Rhaegar spoke with grave fire. The pact of ice and fire reborn, the need for northern lords and dragon-blooded knights to fortify the wall, not tear 7 kingdoms asunder. Arthur unfurled new banners, silver harp quartered with direwolf and black crow, designed in secret during the riverward march. The watch officers balked. Slint sputtered about neutrality. Rhaegar dismissed him, reminding the watch commander the realm they guarded could not survive civil war with winter at the gate. Aemon turned his milk eyes upon the men. I resign my chain to Rhaegar Targaryen this day, he declared. He will carry word south, to Dragonstone, to Storm's End, to Winterfell. Listen, or be buried under ice. The simple speech carried weight beyond gold. By sundown, ravens exploded from Castle Black in every direction, wings blotting out the dying light. Each bore parchment sealed in black wax. Benjen volunteered to ride east and south, carrying messages too sensitive for ink. Rhaegar pressed a ring into his palm, pale jade set with a shard of ruby. For your brother, he said, proof of my vow. Benjen swore before the weirwood stump by the gate. When he rode into the storm, Bran soared above him in owl form until the wolf cub vanished among snowy ridges. The ring's ruby winked once, catching stray moonlight, then was lost to dark. In Dragonstone's winding maze of stone stairs and sea-cooled tunnels, Princess Elia doubled over sudden pain. 2 Dornish mutes lifted her to bed while midwives panicked, the babe not due for moons. Elia's hands fluttered over belly where life kicked as if in protest. The sound of distant thunder echoed, yet the sky outside the narrow Lionmaw windows was clear. She whispered Rhaegar's name as blood spread on linen. Archmaester Caliot worked feverishly. Dawn broke gray and trembling, and a girl light as a feather slid into the world crying soft, as though already weary. Elia named her Visenya, though the Archmaester warned that in the old tongue the name meant herald of victory through flame. Elia wept but would not recant. She sent ravens to Storm's End and Sunspear. Tell Rhaegar his daughter lives, though the mother wanes. Dragonstone's Maester later recorded the night's barometer pressure dropped to unnatural lows. The castle's black stone sweated salt. Hearth fires hissed blue for hours after. At Winterfell, robins returned weeks early, pecking thawed earth despite snowdrifts. Maester Luwin frowned at climate charts. Wolves howled at midday. An omen, old Nan muttered, counting pearls on the little finger she'd lost to frostbite decades before. In the Godswood, Bran, Rhaegal Bran, lay upon heart-tree roots, half awake, half drifting between times. He felt each raven dispatched by Aemon's streak across skies like bright threads pulling destiny taut. He saw Ned Stark approaching the Eyrie. He saw Robert pacing Storm's End ramparts, blowing hot breath into cupped hands. He saw Rhaegar writing manifestos by torchlight in Long Barrow Keep, ringed by watchmen who whispered "Your Grace" behind his back. Bran saw more. A vision of wildfire bursting beneath King's Landing. Jaime's blade shining red, a red comet. Futures jostled, each vying for precedence, overlapping like storm waves. Mira Reed dabbed his brow with willow bark tea. Bran jolted awake, gasping. Time is snarling, he choked. I pulled the thread too tight. Mira cupped his cheek. Then weave another. Bran closed his eyes. If I tug again, the tapestry might tear. Choose carefully. She pressed his weirwood carved token into his palm. We trust you. Bran swallowed, feeling roots and rivers pulse. He listened for the song in the wood. Always there, a 1,000-voiced choir. Among them he sought a new verse, softer, guiding, not rending. And in the hush he heard his own name on distant breath. Brandon the Builder, Brandon the Shipwright, Brandon the Breaker. A lineage calling him to build bridges where others saw only moats. He resolved then, no more changes by force. He would whisper guiding breezes, not hurl storms. Let the players move. Let their own hearts judge. He slipped back into the net. Ned Stark reached the Vale after 10 days of hard ride. At the gates of the moon, Ser Vance met him with guarded courtesy, Jon Arryn bedridden with a lung fever. Robert Baratheon was there, though pacing like a bull in rut. Ned found his foster brother at the high hall balcony, tankard in hand, fuming at the sight of flurries drifting past sheer cliffs. "Ravens from the wall," Robert growled. "More dragon lies. He says the dead walk, warns of storms of ice." He spat over the edge. "Delays. Rhaegar hides in a snow fort while my betrothed weeps. Does he think me so timid?" Ned braced against wind. "He sends proof. Benjen rides to us." "He can bring Lyanna," Robert snarled. "Else I break my hammer on every dragon skull till hers is freed." Ned held his friend's gaze. "And if the wall truly falls?" Robert's hearty laugh was hollow. "Then we'll die colder, but still free of dragons." He turned away, knuckles white on the balcony rail. "You know Lyanna hated dragons." "She hated cages," Ned answered softly, "whether built of roses or iron." Robert's shoulders sagged. He drank deep. "What if Rhaegar truly has turned against his mad sire? Then we must join him," Ned said, "before Aerys burns us all." Robert barked a humorless laugh. "Join a dragon?" He shook his head. "Hammer and wolf against dragon and corpse. A tale for songs, Ned, but songs won't feed small folk." He slammed the tankard down. "If Jon Arryn falls, we stand alone."
Ned stared at two Erling snowflakes.
Each caught a glint of sun, then drowned in wind. "No," he murmured, "not alone." He touched the jade and ruby ring Benjen had delivered only hours earlier, a ring forged of promise stronger than steel. Benjen reached Riverrun battered but alive, bearing letters for every lord he passed. One missive reached Lord Hoster before fever took his voice. "Rhaegar offers parley in Winterfell come midsummer to forge a pact of ice and fire." Another found Daisy Mormont afloat off Cape Kraken. "The prince calls the stony shore to muster as shield maidens of the north." The black crow seal stirred hearts once deaf to dragons. But ravens fly two ways. Copies soon lay on Tywin Lannister's lap in Casterly Rock. The Lion Lord read without expression, then fed parchments to his hearth. He summoned Kevin, double grain tribute to King's Landing. Aerys will need coin for wildfire, and he will remember who supplied it. "In hopes he burns?" Kevin asked. "In hopes he stalls," Tywin countered. While lions sharpen claws, the pack's rumors spread like slow fire. Some scoffed. Southern maesters called it a northern snow dream. Dornish lords wagered whether Rhaegar bedded a spear wife. But others listened. Lord Mace Tyrell dispatched riders to intercept armies before they marched. House Hightower reopened cryptic libraries to dust off manuscripts on the long night. In Bravos, the Iron Bank quietly purchased stores of obsidian from Volantis mines. And in the Red Keep, Aerys' paranoia reached fever. He commanded the Kingsguard to seize the Dragon Pit and enthrone catapults filled with wildfire barrels. Jaime's dream of duty curdled. Every torch he passed reeked green and wicked. One midnight, Jaime found Queen Riella weeping outside young Viserys' nursery. "He calls for Rhaegar," she whispered. "But if Rhaegar returns, he will burn." "He will not return soon," Jaime said, but his tone offered little comfort. "Then we are doomed." Her words echoed along corridors. Jaime walked them until he stood before the throne room's towering doors. He pressed gloved fingertips against dark oak, tasting the weight of an unsheathed decision. Inside, Aerys cackled, dictating to scribes, "Send word. The Dragon Prince is no son of mine. Traitor. I name him traitor." Each scratch of quill-sealed nails in the realm's coffin. Jaime backed away, face pale. He touched the hilt of his sword as though seeking guidance in cold steel. Deep in the haunted forest, Rhaegar knelt before a fresh cairn. Ser Waymar's frozen remains buried beneath stones, a dragonglass dagger thrust upright atop the mound. Icicles clung to his lashes. Arthur watched from a respectful distance. "He fought bravely," the prince said. "He taught us more in death than in life." He rose, brushed snow from knees. We ride south before the next moonrise. Winterfell first, then Riverrun. The stage is set. Arthur noted the tremor in Rhaegar's hand as he fitted glove. Are we not moving too swiftly? War brews on two fronts. The king calls you traitor. My father forfeited fatherhood when he chose flame over flesh, Rhaegar said bitterly. I ride to forge a new crown, one fit for winter. He gazed north, across frozen rivers shimmering like dull silver veins. Bran's unseen eyes followed. Something vast shifted under permafrost. It exhaled a whisper. Cold, patient, eager. Rhaegar turned away. Dawnlight speared through cloud, painting his helm with quicksilver halos. Come, he told Arthur. We have ghosts to chase and kings to unseat. Arthur mounted. Snow geese took wing overhead, white feathers spiraling like torn parchments. The future billowed behind them, unwritten, fragile, waiting for ink that had yet to dry. Bran clung to the owl's breast feathers high above, heart thundering. He felt, more than saw, the tapestry weave anew. Threads of wolf, stag, dragon, and raven twisting over looming shapes of ice. Some knots tightened, others frayed. Yet within the pattern, faint but clear, was a melody he had never heard, hope's quiet counterpoint to winter's dirge. He let the owl cry into empty sky, and the sound carried for leagues, echoing across forests, across keeps, across time. A signal that though night lengthened, watchfires burned bright in mortal hands. And somewhere far below, in a tarnished chamber lined with broken mirrors, a little girl named Visenya Targaryen opened her eyes for the first time, seeing in that instant a reflection not only of self but of a world trembling between frost and flame, waiting to choose what song it would sing. Benjen Stark's cloak snapped behind him like a tattered banner of night and snow as he urged his half-wild Garen across the King's Road. He had ridden through 4 days and 3 nights with scarcely more than a mouthful of sleep at inns whose hearths sputtered low with dwindling stores. Pale spring sunlight, cold as ice steel, slanted through bare beeches and sentinel pines, limning hoarfrost on every branch. Ravens haunted the sky in ragged skeins, croaking warnings Benjen refused to heed. Ahead loomed the first outworks of the neck, where reeds whispered beneath fog and Cranagman eyes watched every traveler. A jade-hulled skiff waited by the causeway, a leathery Cranagman with elfskin braids inspected Benjen's ring. Pale jade circled by a shard of ruby and said nothing. With a jerk of his chin, he pointed to the low mist hovering over the bog. 2 others slipped poles into black water and poled the skiff forward, reeds parting in hushed susurration. When at last the boat nudged mossy earth beneath the ruins of Moat Caelin's northern tower, a slim figure emerged from gloom. Mira Reed, spear in hand, the scars of her grief for Jojen running like pale lightning across an otherwise unlined face. Benjen slid from saddle to ground, legs quivering. I must reach Riverrun, he said. Robert Baratheon must read the prince's words before blood answers blood. Mira studied him with eyes older than her years. You carry more than words. Swift as a frog's tongue, she snatched the ring, turning it so the ruby caught a shaft of coal-red light that pierced the cloud ceiling. Old powers wake when winter walks. We will guide you, but the path grows treacherous. Behind her, a dozen Cranagmen lifted wicker shields painted with twisting green shapes, serpents or roots impossible to tell. Mira gestured to a sunken causeway scarcely wide enough for 2 horses abreast. Follow close. The bog swallows fools and heroes alike. Benjen remounted, heart pounding. He felt, rather than saw, the eyes of the marsh, knew that his every step might tilt fate's balance. Still he pressed on. Above them, unseen, Bran passed from trunk to trunk, an unbodied thought riding the tangled net of green dream and bark. He felt his younger self's uncle's urgency, not merely to prevent war, but to weave time into something survivable. Yet risk shimmered everywhere, on the slick stones, in flickers of frost-wild lightning on the horizon, inside the broken tower where once the Ironborn had carved grisly trophies. Bran whispered to the reeds, asking them to cradle Benjen's boots, and they answered in the hush of distant tides. Far inland, in the Ares Solar, Ned Stark knelt at the bedside of Jon Arryn. The Lord of the Vale lay swaddled in blankets sweetened with essence of honeycomb to mask the sour smell of sickness. His once clear eyes dimmed by fever. Outside, falcons wheeled above white cliffs. Their cries filtered through arrow slits like faint trumpets from another world. Ned clasped the bones of his foster father's hand. "Benjen rides to us bearing counsel from the prince," he said in a low murmur. "Robert's rage mounts. You must rise, else war will rise in your stead." Jon Arryn's lips parted, a sigh escaping. "Robert, too much Baratheon blood, storm without harbor." His swollen tongue paused. "Guide him, my son. Guide him as you would younger brother."
Ned squeezed gently.
"I will." Arryn's fingers tightened, surprising strength. "And watch the lion. Tywin moves in shadows." The grip went slack. The old lord drifted again to uneasy sleep. Catelyn stood by the hearth, brow furrowed. "He fades," she whispered as Ned joined her. "The maester's potions dull the pain, but soon." Ned rubbed weary eyes. "Robert must listen now, not later. When Benjen arrives, we'll ride to meet the prince in the north and bring Lyanna home. Ares will not yield hostages," Cat warned. "Then we must end Ares," Ned said, voice cold as the Vale's wind. "But if we raise banners before the wall is secured, we murder the realm. Ice must be answered before fire." Cat pressed a kiss to his cheek. "May the old gods guide your words, and the new guide Robert's temper." Above them, the Arryn falcons screamed again, circling as though scenting change on rising thermals. In King's Landing, golden afternoon light slanted through the high keep windows, glinting off fires of emerald. Jaime Lannister followed Qyburn and two pyromancers down winding stairs toward the hidden vaults. Their torches cast writhing shadows on damp stone. The air reeked of rotted eggs and secrets best left to night. Ares's decree had been simple. Double the wildfire caches under every major district, fill sept cellars, palace crypts, even the ratways beneath Flea Bottom. Qyburn, expelled maester-turned-monarch's pet alchemist, provided improvements. Slurry of brimstone and copper scraped from the ruins of Valyria. Jaime tasted bile at every turn. Tyrion's letters sometimes mocked his honor, but Tyrion had never walked these passages and felt madness soaking the stone. Each vault door Jaime unlocked was another link in a chain binding him to a crime not yet committed. When at last they emerged into the torchlit corridor outside the small council chamber, Qyburn bowed, black lips peeling back. "The king commends your diligence, sire," he rasped. "When the cleansing flames rise, your name will be sung in halls of light." Jaime's hand tightened on his helm. "When flames rise, there will be no halls," he growled, pushing past. Inside the council, Grand Maester Pycelle pontificated on supply lines for Tyroshi lime water, a necessary additive, he insisted, for maintaining wildfire purity over long storage. Ares slouched across the iron throne, fingernails bloody crescents against leather, muttering fragments of verse about dragonfire purging lies. Varys caught Jaime's eye and raised one plucked brow. Without words, the spider asked, "How much longer can you watch?" Jaime gave no answer, but a tremor crossed his jawline that did not escape Varys's notice. When the session adjourned, Ares beckoned Jaime forward. "The lion still roars for me, yes?" he crooned. "I can trust those golden jaws to close on traitors?" Jaime knelt, head bowed. "Your grace has my oath." The king's hand, hot and shaking, caressed Jaime's gilded coif. "Soon the world will burn bright." Laughter like broken glass skittered down the hall. Jaime rose, nausea coiling in his belly. He thought of Rhaegar, the gentle prince who played harp while kings plotted doom, and wondered how two men of one blood could stand so far apart unbridged. Then he remembered the hilt at his side. A sword might still build a bridge, though it be slick with blood. At Winterfell, dusk birthed a sky of bruised lavender. Rhaegar paced the battlements above the east gate, cloak billowing. Below, small folk from Wintertown queued with stores of grain and smoked pork bound for Castle Black. At the prince's behest, Lord Stark had declared a tithe of winter provisions for the watch. Some grumbled. Others, staring at the dragon helm shining orange in torchlight, crossed themselves with gnarled fingers. Sir Arthur Dane joined him carrying news. Our outriders report Karstark banners mustered at last hearth. Harrien Karstark rides here with 500 spears. For or against? Rhaegar asked without turning. They carry peace knots on their lances. Intent appears guessed right. Good. The prince's breath left in a white plume. We will need every northern house pledged publicly before we ride south. Arthur shifted. And if some refuse? Rhaegar's violet eyes reflected dying light. Then ice will judge them. I will not. When Arthur left, Rhaegar leaned on the parapet and gazed toward the heart tree at the Godswood's center. Torches cast flickering red gold over the weirwood's bleeding face. He felt, almost heard, the creak of old limbs speaking words older still. Blood and bone and duty. Closing his eyes, the prince listened, hoping a voice like cracked ice would speak again. But only wind answered, sighing through crenels. Inside the great hall, Lady Catelyn's sister Lisa Arryn arrived with a small escort, pale and wide-eyed, claiming urgent letters from the Eyrie. Ned welcomed her but found little comfort. Robert's temper grew, Jon Arryn's fever worsened, and Tywin massed troops in the Westerlands. Yet Rhaegar remained calm, reading every parchment thrice before folding them in measured creases. The lion wakes, Ned warned. The wheel turns, Rhaegar replied. But winter's spokes cannot be shattered by petulant roars. On the King's Road south of Moat Cailin, twilight glazed puddles in molten gold. Benjen and Mira's escort made camp beneath a leaning oak. Benjen warmed hands by a smokeless peat fire while Mira sharpened her spear with whetstone strokes that matched the cadence of night insects. Above them a waxing moon slipped from vapor, painting the causeway silver. Benjen broke the hush. Tell me of your brother's dreams. Mira's file paused. Jojen saw flames licking the sky, a king screaming in his own throne room, snow burying a field of swords, and a wolf howling beside a dragon, both wounded but unbowed. She resumed sharpening. Some visions happened, some have not. Do you trust the prince? Benjen asked. I trust the trees, she answered. The prince hears them better than most. Benjen studied her face, wondering what weight lingered behind those calm green irises. He remembered the icy figure that had broken itself before Rhaegar and felt a chill. If Robert refuses alliance, then others must hold him down while the realm is stitched. Mira blew iron filings from the spearhead. Storm lords seldom heed whispers. Sometimes they require nets. That night Bran's consciousness hovered above their camp in the shape of a snow-white raven. He watched a shadow slither out of the bog and sniff the air. A gaunt wolf with eyes glazed white by blindness. It skirted the embers and vanished. A sign Bran knew, the past sending a half-remembered ghost to nudge possibility. He croaked once, a single note of warning lost to the swamps. Dawn of the 8th day after Rhaegar's return to Winterfell broke with trumpets echoing down the winter hills. The gatehouse boomed as Lord Karstark lodged his spearheads in racks, banners sagging listless in zero wind. Rhaegar greeted Harrien beneath the portcullis, offering bread and salt. The Karstark lord bowed stiffly, black beard iced with ride frost. We come for truth, he said. Truth sits by the hearth, Rhaegar replied, guiding him inside. Feasting tables groaned under slabs of boar, wheels of goat cheese, baskets of last season's apples. But conversation outstripped chewing. Harrien demanded proof of walking dead. Rhaegar produced the obsidian dagger scarred by blue cracks. Lords examined it, muttering. Maester Luwin corroborated the ranger's tales. Still skepticism lingered until a raven burst through the arrow slit and landed before the prince, cawing. Bran, riding within its mind, forced its beak to drop a milky ice not pearl, that rattled across the trenchers. Gasps erupted. The eye cracked, releasing a wisp of white vapor that curled into the shape of a skull before dissipating. Harrien Karstark paled. Sorcery, perhaps, but not southern sorcery. Rhaegar stood. Ice is no man's vassal, he said. It will swallow us all if we squabble while it advances. Harrion nodded slowly. Carhold will stand with Winterfell in this pact. The stag child may rage, the lion may roar, but we will not kneel to flames while the dark breathes down our necks. Other lords, Serwyns, Umbers, Hornwoods echoed assent. Northern unity, fragile yet real, crystallized. Ned exhaled a breath he had been holding for moons. Catelyn gripped his forearm under the table, nails pressing reassurance. South again, Benjen's party emerged from the neck onto rolling green country, the last snowdrifts fading behind them. At a crossroads in near the Twins, they found the Frey bannermen drilling. Ser Stevran Frey, wizened yet hawk-eyed, greeted Benjen with forced courtesy. The Twins will host all envoys, he announced, provided tolls are paid. Mira muttered about leeches fattening on the realm's veins. Benjen produced a letter sealed with the black crow and three-headed dragon. Stevran's lip curled. He waved them through but insisted on escort. Crossing the Twins, Benjen saw barges afloat with barrels. Blackwood grain bound for Lannisport, so rumor whispered. Silver for Tywin's coffers. Past the Green Fork, the King's Road forked again. Mira's Crannogmen turned east for Seaguard. Benjen continued to Riverrun, half expecting arrows. None came. Riverland farmers, wary but decent, pointed him onward. At dusk of the 9th day, he spotted Riverrun's red walls glowing like banked coals. Outside the eastern Barbican, tents of Baratheon blue crowned with golden stags fluttered beside direwolf gray and Tully silver trout. Within, a dozen horns signaled his arrival. Benjen's horse staggered into the courtyard where Robert Baratheon awaited, mail glinting, hammer leaned against his knee. "You bear news from the dragon spawn?" he called. Benjen dismounted stiffly and drew forth the ring. "Prince Rhaegar sues for pact, my lord." Robert's eyes narrowed at the jade and ruby circle. "Pretty bauble. I prefer steel." Ned stepped from shadows. "Listen, Robert." Benjen unrolled a parchment. Rhaegar's handwriting flowed across in High Valyrian and Common both. Invitation to a council of lords at Moat Cailin on the first full moon of summer. Pledge to march north against the others. Promise of hostages exchanged in good faith. Elia and their children to Storm's End. Lyanna to Dragonstone. The concluding line, "Ice must meet fire where dawn begins." Robert read silently, jaw working. "And if I refuse?"
Ned answered.
"Winter will devour the north unchallenged, and wildfire may devour the south. Either way, 7 kingdoms drown." Silence. Outside, banners popped in a rising wind. Robert's brow furrowed. Beneath bluster lay a soldier's instinct for strategy. "If I go with my men." He jabbed finger at parchment. "And Lyanna rides south with me after." Benjen met his gaze. "The prince swears by all gods she will." Robert's fist closed, knuckles white as chalk. Then he shoved the parchment at Ned. "Very well, but if this is deceit, the dragon's skull will ring on my hammer till the world trembles." Ned bowed head. "Then keep the hammer close, Lord of Storms." In Sunspear, Obara Sand leaned on a sun-washed parapet, reading a smuggled letter half-blurred by sweat. Prince Doran dozed in a litter behind her. His gout swelled with every rumor of war. Obara's eye lingered on the line naming Elia's newborn daughter Visenya. She clenched jaw. "Mother's child will not die in northern snow." Tyene, pale and sweet, plucked the parchment. "Nor in Dragonstone's fog. Perhaps we should nudge our sweet griffin knights to ride sooner." Obara spat into the courtyard dust. "Steel before silk, sister." Far below, Myrish ships bobbed in the harbor, unloading bolts of rich cotton and casks of bright red. Doran watched unseen, mind measuring each drop of water under every hull. Atop the wall, Ser Oswell went patrolled night ramparts beneath shimmering curtains of green aurora. The phenomenon, rare even this far north, painted the ice in jade. Oswell paused, Dawn's moon-white blade sheathed at hip. He thought of Hightower myths, ghost rulers from the sky returning in lights, and wondered which prophecy Rhaegar followed now. Footsteps crunched. Maester Aemon appeared, hunched in black cloak lined with raven feathers. "The sky writes portents," he murmured, pupils milk-clouded. "But men choose which to read." Oswell bowed. "The prince returns to Winterfell tomorrow. The castles stir." Eamon nodded. "When dragons dance with wolves, the field yields roses or bones." A smile ghosted his lips. "May we gather bouquets?" Oswell touched Dawn's pommel. "And if bones, then let them be laid in an ordered cairn." The old man turned toward the shimmering horizon. "Songs endure even when singers fail." Across the narrow sea, on a lonely stretch of Stepstone's coast, a ragtag crew of sail sails huddled around a fire. Their captain, a brazen Tyroshi named Miles Toyne, called the Mummer's Dragon, unfolded a parchment bearing the crown dragon sigil split by a line of northern runes. "A Targaryen offering truce to wolves," he scoffed. "Perhaps Westeros quakes." A Lyseni archer spat wine. "Ares burns even his own. One prince's madness less, perhaps others may prosper." Toyne's grin gleamed gold teeth. "Or perhaps Selsword kings prosper still more amid civil blaze." He flicked parchment into flames. "Either way, the Golden Company waits." In the flicker, the parchment's ink twisted, forming shapes that looked like serpents devouring their tails. Evening came to Winterfell the day before Rhaegar's march south. Snow began as flurries but thickened, swirling in ghostly corridors between towers. Bran watched from the boughs of the heart tree while Mira Reed settled his sleeping body into woolens. Hodder was gone, summer hunted farther afield, but the gods would still felt alive, its silence brimming with unsung songs. Rhaegar entered alone, boots crunching crusted snow. He approached the heart tree and knelt. Bran felt the prince's heartbeat echo in roots. Rhaegar drew a small carved harp from under his cloak, his father's last gift, saved from King's Landing before the Exodus. He plucked a single note. The string hummed low, vibrating through icy air like a throat clearing. "I have heard your voice," he whispered to the face carved in wood. "Child of winter, will you hear mine?" Wind tousled red leaves, shaking flurries loose. Rhaegar closed eyes and played, a melody half lullaby, half lament. The chords drifted across frozen pool, layering grief on hope on mourning. Bran felt each vibration as if beneath his ribs. A vision flickered. Lyanna Stark in a tower of pale dawn, smile soft, placing rose crown on Rhaegar's brow. Then flame swallowed stone, and ashes blew away. Rhaegar faltered, finger hovering above last chord. Barely audible, he spoke. "If you yet guide me, show a sign." The last pluck rang, then subsided. Silence resumed, thick as the snow. Rhaegar bowed his head in resignation. Bran hesitated, weighing warnings against mercy. Then, gently, he nudged the string again. Not enough to shatter time, only enough to answer faith. A harmonic shimmered, resonant and eerie, hovering in air for a heartbeat too long to be chance. Rhaegar's breath caught. He looked up, wonder overtaking exhaustion. "Thank you," he whispered, and stood renewed. Bran retreated, pulse thrumming with relief and dread. Small interventions, he reminded himself. Small as seeds. Morning of departure dawned under bruised clouds. Winterfell's yard thronged with soldiers, Karstark spears, Mormont axes, Serwyn bows. Arrayed beside Rhaegar's reduced retinue of Kingsguard and Northerners sworn to his cause. Ned embraced Benjen, newly arrived, before turning to Robert Baratheon mounted on a towering chestnut destrier. Robert's face was storm clouds, but he wore no battle helm, only a hood trimmed in soft fur. Rhaegar approached leading a pale dapple mare. On its saddle rested a cloak of midnight blue lined with white fur. "For Lyanna," he said. Robert's eyes flicked to the cloak, then to the ruby-sprinkled pommel of the prince's sword. He said nothing, but he did not refuse the gesture. The gates clanked open. Ned rode at Rhaegar's right, Robert at his left, banners of direwolf and stag mingling with the silver harp. Behind them trailed a column stretching a mile. Karstark black suns, Stark gray windwolves, Tully trout, Umber roaring giant, Baratheon crowned stag. Hammers rattled against shields in rhythmic thunder. On the ramparts, Lady Catelyn lifted Robb, plump, fierce-eyed babe, to wave a tiny fist at the column below. Bran, inside, felt tears burn as he watched the child who would grow different than before. Another branch diverged. Mira wheeled him to his chamber afterward. "They ride for peace," she said. "They ride for trial," Bran answered. "Peace lies past shadow." In the Westerlands, Lord Tywin Lannister received scouts at the gates of Casterly Rock. Their report, stark. And Baratheon ride under dragon banners. Rivermen mass near the Twins. The prince holds Winterfell. Tywin paced his solar, sunlight flashing on gilt lions. "Tell the king," he ordered Kevin. "Offer 10,000 shields if he needs them. Put Aerys in my debt, not my sons." Kevin hesitated. News from the Reach. Lord Hightower sent maesters to the wall bearing casks of dragonglass. The Highgarden host has yet to declare sides. They wait, as does Dorne. Tywin's gold-green eyes narrowed. "Then we will not wait. Ready the levies. If the stag and wolf build walls of ice, the lion will breach them." That night Bran dreamed of splitting ice. In the dream he was both himself and the wall, feeling cold cracks widen under ancient weight. White walkers marched in silence. Their eyes were stars extinguished by frost. They raised shattered blades and pointed south. Then a horn sounded, Rhaegar's war horn, wrought in Valyrian steel and bone, sending ripples across sky. The walkers paused, studying horizon where dawnlight bled red gold. Bran awoke with a start. The flame in his hearth had died, smoke curling like a sleepy snake. Mira slept upright in chair, spear across lap. He reached for her hand, felt its warmth, and whispered, "We have maybe one season." She blinked awake. Then every word spoken must seed hope. She rose, stirring the ashes to life. Bran stared through window at distant torches bobbing along King's Road, carrying pact and peril. 5 hours of story still stretched before them, but he knew time's loom wove faster than any mortal breath. He inhaled, steadying himself, and summoned courage to guide without ruling, influence without owning. In roots and river song he sought small ripples, ripples that might steer mountains. South of the neck, the column marched at deliberate pace. Each campfire at night became a council chamber. Rhaegar listened more than he spoke, inviting dissent. Robert's voice rumbled over every map like thunder, demanding direct assault on King's Landing. Ned advocated isolating Aerys, cutting supply lines, persuading Tyrells with marriage offers. Karstark lords insisted the North could not spare more men till harvest. Rhaegar agreed, promising to station Dragonstone galleys in White Harbor come autumn. On the 5th night, as owls hooted from distant copses, the 3 leaders gathered around a low brazier. Rhaegar produced a sealed scroll bearing the sigil of House Martell. "My wife Elia birthed a daughter," he said softly. "Her name is Visenya." Robert tossed a twig into fire. It popped. "Congratulations," Ned offered, sincere. Rhaegar's eyes glistened. "I will not see her until my father is deposed." He met Robert's gaze. "Help me free the realm, and I swear Visenya will know Lyanna as aunt, not prisoner." Robert swallowed. For once words evaded him. Ned watched, heart twisting. Rhaegar extended hand across brazier. "One fight. When ice is secured and my father unseated, I will step aside if realm demands it. Let a council of great lords choose the throne, even if not Targaryen." Robert stared, brows knitting. "You'd surrender crown?" "I'd surrender crown to save kingdom," Rhaegar said. "Prophecy speaks of prince that was promised. It never said he must be king." Silence sizzled in embers. At last Robert gripped the offered forearm, clasping tight. "We end the madness first." Ned placed his hand over theirs. "For the North, the realm, and the dawn." 3 hands locked above the flame, casting a single shadow that twisted like a living thing against the tent wall. Outside, night creatures stilled, listening. Far away, in King's Landing's dungeons, wildfire hissed as though jealous of oaths unburdened by flame. Approaching dawn revealed a fisher village half drowned by swelling river. The war column halted to aid. Northerners formed bucket lines. Baratheon knights waded into chilly current to drag free a capsized ferry. Rhaegar himself wove through smoldering huts carrying blankets. Small folk watched, astonished. A dragon prince wearing mud to his knees, a stag lord hauling thatch, a wolf lord directing rescue. Bran hovered above in the mind of a kestrel. He saw children's eyes flicker from terror to awe. He saw an old woman whisper, "Maybe the gods remember us yet." These seeds, he knew, would flower when next the lords of Westeros chose sides. As the column rode away hours later, a band of fishermen jogged behind carrying spears of river reed and pikes tipped in rust. They knelt before Karstark riders. "For the dawn," their spokesman croaked. 3 simple words, but they hit Bran like a bell toll. Proof hope traveled faster than Raven's wing. In the Red Keep, Varys glided into a dim alcove where Queen Rhaella, gaunt and gray, clutched Viserys to her breast. "Your Grace," Varys whispered, "a covert vessel under Lyseni papers can sail you to Dragonstone by next moon's turn." Rhaella stroked Viserys' hair. "And leave King's Landing to burn? To survive," Varys corrected. "So your eldest might shape a realm unblackened by wild flame." Her eyes filled with tears. "I will not abandon Aerys." Varys' lowered gaze, voice silk over steel. "Your Grace, the king you married died years ago. What remains would burn the babe in your arms if it pleased his nightmares." Viserys whimpered, sensing tension. Rhaella kissed his brow. "I need time," she said. "You have little," Varys answered, steps receding into corridors lined with dragon skulls. When he vanished, Rhaella rocked gently, whispering lullabies older than recorded melody. One stanza told of a shepherd girl who soothed 3 wild dragons to sleep with her song, until a jealous prince silenced her.
Tiers wet visserijspijllesjes.
Rhaella prayed her son would never wield jealousy sharper than sword. In a nearby antechamber, Jaime Lannister cleaned Lion's tooth. Each stroke of cloth shone reflections of torches. In each reflection he saw Aerys' face contorted in cruel delight. Beside him, a servant girl murmured of rumors. Wolves and dragons forging peace, wildfire caches uncovered in the city. Jaime stilled. If rumors reached common rooms, time shortened. He sheathed the sword with a click that sounded like fate closing. Under a clear sky at the ruins of Moat Cailin, lords assembled. Stone-fell towers stood sentinel, draped in moss, but torches and banners now lined causeways where sawgrass once reigned. High among them flapped the newly forged banner, a direwolf rampant over dragon harp upon a black crow's wing. Beneath it Rhaegar waited, Arthur Dayne at his right, Ned and Robert flanking him left. Harrion Karstark, Galbart Glover, Lord Wyman Manderly, Hoster Tully, gaunt and fever-pale but present. Stannis Baratheon, grim, Brynden Blackfish, skeptically amused. Lords of the Trident, North, Vale, Storm, scattered Westermen disillusioned with king's taxes. Seated at a rough oak table, they began. First the Watch's messenger, a gaunt ranger named Dywyn missing 2 fingers, recounted dead men walking. Then Maester's read treatises on dragonglass and First Men lore. Rhaegar produced the self-slain White Walker's dagger. Gasps rippled. Arguments ignited. Stannis demanded proof of Aerys' madness. Blackfish insisted Tywin would not allow deposition. Manderly proposed summoning Great Council. Robert argued swords speak faster than councils. Hours stretched. Dusk painted marsh crimson. Western horns startled discourse. A party approached, golden lions on crimson. Jaime Lannister rode at head, white cloak billowing. Beside him sat Lord Kevin. Behind, 100 Lannister men-at-arms, gauntlets wrapped in white cloth, sign of parley. Myrms darted like minnows. Jaime dismounted and advanced alone. "Prince Rhaegar," he called, voice carrying. "My father sends word. The king names you usurper, declares all traitors who follow you. Tywin offers mediation. Cede Lyanna Stark, return to King's Landing, and the throne will judge." Robert's laughter boomed. "Your father offers as butcher offers mercy to lamb." Rhaegar raised hand for quiet. And what does Ser Jaime offer? Jaime's green gaze flicked to Robert, Ned. I offer truth. The king will burn the city if you march. Wildfire under every sept, every orphanage, every slum. Stand down or watch 250,000 burn. Silence heavier than stone. Rhaegar's jaw clenched. Can you swear this? Jaime looked away. I swear, he whispered. Murmurs swelled into shouts.
Ned banged dogger hilt.
Wild accusations may be ploy, but Bran, perched within a willet fluttering above, sensed Jaime's raw anguish, felt truth crackle. Rhaegar spoke. Then there is no choice. We must strike before wildfire set alight. He surveyed assembled lords. Ride with me now and we free the city. Hesitate and we doom innocence. Stannis slammed fist. Storm's end will march. Karstark's swords lifted in silent pledge. The Blackfish stroked beard, nodded. Harry and Karstark voiced hesitation. Dragonfire opposes wildfire. Will you burn city yourself, Prince?
No, Rhaegar answered.
Fire must end with me. He tore off his ruby-studded gorget, letting gems scatter onto moss. I will wear no crown until the world is safe. Robert watched rubies glisten in mud, shock mixing with respect. Jaime, relief and fear twined, knelt. Command me. Rhaegar extended hand, raised Jaime. Ride south by secret ways. Gather city watch loyal to realm, not king. Disarm pyromancers if able. My host will follow within a fortnight. Jaime bowed. Turning, he saw Bran's bird above, recognized something strange in unblinking eyes, and for a blink wondered if gods peered. Night blanketed Moat Cailin. Campfires burned. Bran slipped from bird to weirwood root to sleeping wolf outside Stark tent. Inside, Ned, Catelyn arrived late. Robert and Rhaegar bent over maps. Bran listened. We can't move 15,000 men unseen, Ned argued. We need not, Rhaegar said. Striking columns. One down the King's Road, one by sea. I will ride to White Harbor, sail with Manderley fleet. Robert's storm host marches the road. Ned splits to Riverrun to rally Tully levies. Robert twirled hammer. Speed and surprise. Catelyn pointed at valleys. And Tywin?
Ned sighed.
Ser Brynden rides to Harrenhal to delay. We trust river terrain to slow Westermen. Rhaegar's hand drifted to harp at waist. Dawn is near, he whispered. Bran felt those words resonate. He saw in flash the wall cracking. He saw Aerys' throne room ablaze, Jaime's sword dripping green echoes. He saw snow on Dragonstone's beach, Visenya toddling through ash. Time convulsed. Bran steadied himself. Small ripples, he reminded, but as he gazed upon war council forging fragile hope, he knew small was now relative. The snowball rolled downhill, gathering realm. In the September of Baelor, Grand Septon Lucerne dreamed of angelic hosts, woke to hellish heat, found wildfire vats beneath crypt chamber. He wrote desperate plea to Highgarden, sealed with rainbow wax, sent by fastest rider. When he attempted to confront the king, Qyburn's mutes blocked hall, knives flashed. The Septon retreated to prayers, tears salting his beard. Wildfire bowls glowed brighter each night. Streets buzzed. Bakers smelled brimstone. Ragpickers coughed green. Inside Red Keep, Jaime closed his eyes at dusk, repeating Rhaegar's words. Gather loyal watch. In memory King's voice hissed, let it burn. The sword at Jaime's side grew heavier. A fortnight later, sails of Manderley fleet cut moonlit waters. Rhaegar stood at prow of flagship the White Wolf, wind tearing silver hair free. Beside him Lord Wyman, prodigious girth wrapped in bearskin, recited histories of undull sea campaigns. Rhaegar listened, eyes on faint glow to south. King's Landing's distant lanterns, too bright by half. Below deck, Benjen drank with sailors, recounting White Walker tale, each telling stoked fear but also confidence. If a man of 19 could face death made ice, maybe mortal blades could carve destiny. Mid-voyage, a gale roared out of the east. Towers of black cloud flashed pink at edges. Waves pounded hull. Sailors cursed storm's ends gods. Rhaegar strapped himself to mast and sang a low melody. Harp drowned, but his voice carried. A song of crossing water, of dragons swimming night seas. Some men claimed the waves eased. Bran, riding seagull, saw shapes beneath foam. Shadow-scaled forms pacing the ships. Ancient instinct recoiled. Dragons of the deep? No, illusions of brine. Yet he felt currents shift, as if something older than Targaryen blood stirred in watery graves. The storm host under Robert advanced toward the Trident. Scouts returned with news. Lord Cannington marched a royalist army east from King's Landing, walls of spears, banners of griffin red. Ned, riding at head of smaller northern vanguard, counseled circumvent and link with Manderley at Maidenpool afterward. Robert refused. If Cannington stands in path, we smash him. Stag horns do not bend. Under green willow canopies along tumbling river, battle lines formed. Dawn saw mist over water. By midday heat built. Robert donned antler helm, lifted hammer. Cannington arrayed knights in scarlet. But before horns blew, a white-cloaked rider galloped between armies waving a banner half-red, half-black crow. Jaime Lannister threw back helm, golden hair gleaming. Cannington balked. Traitor! Jaime reigned. The king readies wildfire beneath city. Withdraw, Jon. You once spoke of honor, now shield small folk. Cannington's jaw worked. He'd been Rhaegar's friend. He stared at Robert, at Ned. Proof. Jaime tossed a leather pouch across field. It tumbled, spilling glass vials of green liquid fizzing spitefully in sun. Cannington shuddered. Silence fell. Birds chirped as though battle were a children's game. At last Cannington raised gauntlet fist, signaling retreat. Some knights objected. He silenced them with glare. His army wheeled, marching south to Storm's End to hold lines against Tyrell possibility. Robert exhaled deep. Ned gripped friend's shoulder. Another blade sheathed. Robert nodded, but eyes glittered. Dragons kept good company once. Jaime crossed to them. Robert offered hammer pomp. Jaime bowed. You pledge to Prince? I pledge to Westeros, Jaime said. If that is the prince's cause, so be it. Behind them, banners dipped, iron wash of near battle fading into hush of saved lives. Bran, perched in riverside alder, felt satisfaction ripple. Small corrections seeding great harvest. At Dragonstone, Elia Martell lay pale on feather mattress, Visenya at breast. Maesters predicted fever. Midwives whispered cure in dragonbone powder. Outside, Red Priest Thuras of Myr arrived bearing flaming sword, claiming visions of darkness. Ser Barristan Selmy, returned from fruitless diplomacy, met him at gate. They spoke in hushed tones. Wildfire in capital, armies on roads, dawn host by sea. Thuras's fire flickered green where it should burn red, omen of impurity. Selmy prayed to seven, Thuras to flame. Both feared same doom. Elia, overhearing, summoned Quil despite weakness and wrote to her husband. Return swiftly. The babe hungers for father, and realm starves for peace. A gull carried letter north in Bran's borrowed wings. 2 days north of King's Landing, Manderley fleet disembarked at Maidenpool, linking with Ned. They marched under double banners, hearts solemn. On high hills outside the city, refugees streamed. Farmers, potters, whoremongers, smelling war. Rhaegar ordered supply wagons opened, bread handed freely. Wyman Manderley grumbled but yielded. That night scouts returned. Jaime succeeded in rallying 2/3 of gold cloaks, but pyromancers fortified under Red Keep. Wildfire caches aboard ships in Blackwater Bay ready to ignite. Master of ships had fled. Rhaegar convened war council. We strike within 2 days, he said. A silent assault. Jaime opens mud gate. Robert's hammer shatters traitor's walk. Northerners seize September to secure innocence. My Kingsguard and I confront the king.
Ned objected.
You will die. Jaime must face him. No, Rhaegar said. A son ends father's tyranny. Robert set jaw. Then I stand at your side. Rhaegar smiled faintly. Your war ends mine. Ned felt chill. Prophecy seldom left room for companionship. Still, he placed trust. In King's Landing, Aerys sat alone, scratching scabs, whispering call and response with flames dancing in brazier. They come, he crooned. They come to feed the fire. He giggled, tossing parchment into embers. Outside, bells tolled for evening prayer. The king murmured, "Soon they toll for pyres." Below throne room, Qyburn supervised last placement of casks beneath corridors. Sparks leapt. Mutes lined corridors with kindlings soaked in oil. It would take but one spark to turn capital into furnace. Jaime paced Kingsguard antechamber. Each step clanked. He pictured Rhaegar miles away, closing last buckles. He pictured Ned's gray eyes, Robert's fiery ones. He touched sword hilt. Enough. He marched into throne room, footsteps echoing. Aerys turned, eyes wild. "Where is my traitor's spawn?" "Riding to save your city," Jaime said. "Save? We'll save it from itself." Aerys shrieked, spittle shining. "Burn them all." Jaime's pulse hammered. He knelt, but not in fealty. Drawing sword, he rose. "Forgive me, your grace." Aerys snarled. "Kingslayer." He lunged with dagger, but age dulled speed. Jaime parried, steel singing. Wildfire smell thickened. "Burn them!" King howled to unseen pyromancers. Jaime thrust. Blade slid under ribs, through ragged heart. Aerys gasped. Blood bubbled green tinged. He collapsed. Eyes rolled. Jaime panted, sword red. Footsteps pounded. Pyromancer rushed in, torch raised. Jaime flung dagger. Man fell, torch clattering harmless. Jaime severed fuse leading to kegs. Sweat stung eyes. Down halls, gold cloaks loyal to realm-arrested pyromancers. Bells tolled again, confused. City held its breath. Jaime wiped blade on cloak and turned toward balcony. Over Blackwater Bay, moonlit sails approached. He sheathed sword, murmuring, "Hurry, my prince." On the King's Road, Robert's vanguard galloped night ride, hoofbeats thunder. Ned beside him, cloak streaming. Dawn's gray light blossomed. City walls rose ahead, windows fiery with sunrise. Mud gates swung open. Gold cloaks waved stag banners. Robert roared, spurring. Hammer raised, he led 5,000 into streets. Small folk cheered, some confused, some joyous. Robert directed axes to outer pits, smashing tethered ships laden wildfire. Flames licked river, but brave men doused. Meanwhile, Manderly men scaled walls on northern side, securing September priests inside prayed. Invaders offered safety. Rhaegar entered through King's Gate under truce flag, Arthur and Oswell trailing. Jaime met them at Grand Stair. "It is done," Jaime breathed. Wildfire fuse severed. "The king." "I know," Rhaegar said. "Thank you." They ascended. Throne room smelled of copper and char. Aerys' body sprawled, twisted, amber eyes glassy. Rhaegar knelt, closed lids, whispered Valyrian rite. Arthur turned away. Rhaegar rose, faced lords entering. Ned, Stannis, Jaime, Robert. Robert's eyes darted to corpse. Silence. Rhaegar stepped aside. "The realm stands free of madness." Robert hefted hammer, but lowered. Then dawn begins. Outside, bells pealed brilliant notes. Small folk flooded streets, curiosity mixing with terror. Gold cloaks kept order. Rhaegar addressed assembly on red keep steps. "By law of conquest I might claim throne, but I forfeit. A great council shall choose king. Until then, Lord Eddard Stark serves as Lord Protector." Gasped. Ned shook head. Rhaegar pressed sword hilt into his hands. "Ice guides fur." He said. Robert's laugh boomed. "Very well, Lord Protector." He clapped Ned's back. Ned managed faint smile. In heart, he felt weight heavier than tower. In Dragonstone's nursery, Elia felt contraction cease. Fever broke. She sensed something lift. She whispered to Visenya, "Your father is coming home." Across Narrow Sea, in Pentos, Illyrio Mopatus set aside his cheese at Raven's news. Mad King dead, Prince abdicates. Merchants pondered profit in peace. Mercenary companies revised contracts. North of Wall, icy sun glinted on ancient glacier. White walkers stood silent, thin smoke of souls curling from their mouths. They watched dawn pink horizon. One raised shard blade pointing south. The tide had not been turned, only delayed. At Winterfell, Bran collapsed into his own body, tears streaming. Mira caught him. "It's done. Begun," he corrected. "The board resets, but winter still comes." She held him as bells from far south seemed to echo even here, muffled by snows and centuries. Bran closed eyes, listening to root and leaf. The song changed keynote, from minor chord of fear to tense suspension of hope. 5-hour story still unfolded, threads weaving yet. But in this beat, this breath, the realm stepped back from brink, choosing a thinner but brighter path. And that, for an instant as fleeting as heartbeat, felt like spring.